Hi, people of the future. And I'm Dave Rome. I've been on several panels. Hither and ooh, he shuts up. And, well, pick a place and find your card. And this is Craig Vincent, because it says so there, otherwise I forgot it. And that's Ben Ellis. And you're one of the heads of the program?
I'm one of the programming heads, yes.
Okay, and Ben has been on millions of panels and
Yes, I have.
and stuff like that there.
Yes, stuff like that.
So we didn't discuss exactly what we were going to talk about, so we're just going to go this on the fly. Do you have any? I just introduced myself. Why don't you introduce yourself even further?
Well, vis-a-vis this panel, they're all of the things. I'm one of the programming heads, and this is like my fourth year being a head. That's not cool. You know, it can bring a lot of convergence specifics to this. One of the things I do want to say is convergence runs panelists and panelists and things differently than many other conventions. The general things about being on time like that, they're all apply everywhere. But some of the specifics are different here than other places. And so I'm not speaking to those other places. I'm speaking to what's going, So these people might say something different than I say. It doesn't mean it's a contradiction. It means different contexts.
Right. Well,
We're both right, just in different places.
Right. Well, I was going to say that these people might say different things than I say, but they mean different things in different contexts.
And I'm probably going to say things totally different because that's just my field of expertise.
So, anyways.
My experience with being a panelist is I've been on panels at Convergence and MarsCon and Consort, and actually I run programming for Consort in Twin Cities on True Convention, so I've had any insights about that.
Specifics about that.
Okay. Well, then why don't, since you're the more specific, let's go from the specific to the general. What exactly is different about a panel at Convergence as opposed to a panel at other places?
Okay. When we talk, I want to spend a couple minutes talking about the process by which panels make it onto the schedule, which relates a lot to panelists, and these are some of the things here. Convergence is much larger than most other cons. So we do things, I want to say, we need a necessity to have a little less personal touch. In arranging the panels on the schedule and things. If you're assuming, I've heard tales, and I've even attended small conventions where they don't figure out programming until the start of the convention and basically who's there. We sort of can't do that because we have deadlines and long in advance. But we collect ideas. We usually wind up with something like 70 or 100 ideas. There's about 400 programming slots. You do the math. A lot of good ideas don't make it out of the schedule. It's because of the slots. Also, if we have 14 Harry Potter panels in the ideal list, we probably only need 1, 2, or 3. So, it depends. If there was just a new movie out, we might run 5 or 6. It varies from year to year and things like that. So we have this whole process of winnowing down. There's a lot of judgment, a lot of factors which I can go into, but I'm not going to right now. The other thing we do is we have open signups for panels. We have 2 types of panels. We've got locked ones where the people who put the panel together put together all the panels. And often these are performances or things, or presentation type things, or rather than just general discussions. For all the general discussions, they're open when you sign up. If we don't have more than 5 people signing up, those people who sign up are the ones that are on it. Things like schedule conflicts. If we have more than that, then we go through this process of winnowing down 5. The criteria are guests of honor to get on first. Former guests of honors trump everybody else. Invited participants are third on the list. People with special expertise or qualifications in the area. subjective, but it's usually not that hard to be clear. Our fourth and everybody else is good, and everybody else we balance off. How many panels you're already on? If you're already on 5 and somebody else doesn't have any, we try to give it to the guy rather. We do look at gender balance, but only as one of the many mixing factors at the last level, because we don't control the genders of the guest of honor and what they sign up for, and it's really, so I mean, it's a factor, but it's one of them at the last when we're trying to balance off everybody.
So how many people here have wanted to be on a panel? And how many of you have gotten to be on that panel? Not much. Okay, so a reasonable subset.
Most of them, not everybody, but
Not everybody. And of the people who wanted to be on the panel and didn't make it, do you feel that why you weren't was acceptable? I mean, yeah, okay.
sorry. You said you ran programming for a different event. How does that work?
That works. All starts out actually in the year before the event. I set up a programming brainstorming session at the Partnership Society. Basically, I invite a bunch of people to come and give me their ideas for programming. And basically, I have a list of all those ideas that we post on the council or website. And then people basically email to me saying, hey, I want to do this, hey, I want to do that. Another part of what I do at council, and I don't know if Craig did this, I set up the guest of honor interviews too.
We do the one-on-ones, yeah.
The one-on-ones. And that involves, me contacting local authors saying, hey, do you want to interview Colin Baker? And most of the time they'll say yes. So as I was saying earlier, basically in the process is we have the list, and then basically whoever signs up for panels, we put them on the panel, and then eventually we cut the list off. And then basically it's my job to go through the entire, I have a template that I made in Microsoft Word of all the time, because we kind of do what convergence is. We have an hour for a panel and then half an hour off from that, so people can socialize and enjoy themselves. So basically I have a template at home where I write the name of the panel, who's going to be on it. Then I have another one of my co-heads write the description of the panel to get people interested in it. And then hopefully we have people show up. So, and they do show up, but people have a real fun time attending the panels at council. So that's kind of how I do things for council.
Yeah, it actually sounds very similar. We use Salesforce to do all the data entry and manipulation. But, same concept.
Yeah.
Well, it's different when you have a large convention where you don't know people.
Yeah.
There were conventions that I went to, even some of the large ones, the mini-cons that were 1,000 or so people. We knew, not everybody, but certainly a lot of people. And some of my favorite mini-con panel generations were a bunch of us from different social groups as part of it. We knew different people overlapping. And so we would come up with a panel and say, oh, this person's good on it, this person's good on it, this person's good on it. And eventually got them to be on the panel. And so we selected them to a large extent. We can't do that in convergence or anything like that because you just don't know everybody, you don't know who's coming.
We have a particular, we want to be open to new people that we don't know. So if you are only putting panels together about people you know, you never bring in, So we consciously are looking for different panels and different panelists.
So with that, how active are you in pursuing potential hybrid guest of honor? Do you know?
That guest of honor is totally outside of programming. It's
Yeah.
a whole different department in our case.
We have a separate, for council, we have a separate department for guests too. It's broken down a little differently because we'll have one person handle the celebrity guests. But if it's like an author, that's someone I'll deal with. I wouldn't invite them per se, but they'll be the person I'll be in contact with to do panels.
And it's implied if you're going to be guest of honor that you will be on some program. Precisely how much is very great.
Aside from guest of honor, like, if you don't know somebody, but they're an expert subject matter that you know of, how active are you in pursuing?
Depends on the subject. If our science track, for example, we actively pursued some of the scientists that are local around here and tried to get them on, especially if we knew that they were fans of the conventions. Often they weren't, but we would get them. So much fun finding a proto fan. So, and it's kind of, I'm not going to say rare, but generally if someone was a published author, if we didn't know them, we would know someone who knew them. So we could say, are they a good speaker? Some people are very good writers and not very good speakers, and vice versa. Some people play better with others and are better at analysts. And you can have one really good dominant panelist and one really bad panelist as long as they have a good mind.
Mm-hmm.
So the mix, in many ways, is more important.
Convergence has a separate invited participants group department that works with the authors and other people that they feel they aren't guests of honor, but they will enhance the con experience. And I don't have anything to do with that other than we know who they are, and they sign up for panels, and they're third on the list, so we try to make sure. And they sort of have an obligation to try to be on several panels, so we'll try to put them on at least some. It's a complex mix as we're balancing it, but they don't need to be on 30 panels or anything. So once they meet the minimums, feel free to let other people on panels.
I would say the guests of honor and honor guests are other people who you are specifically requesting to be at are a different animal than what we're really trying to get at here with the panelists.
If you just try to make it very special for them, like for all our guests in our council room, I have most of their programming on the main stage because they're our guest of honor. And my philosophy is it's like they're like a guest in their home. We want to give them the best seat, best floor that they can speak. But to speak about how I recruit people I don't know for council room is social media. I just put up messages on Facebook, on Twitter. I contact people, I just send them podcasts or who are local authors who are Doctor Who fans and say, hey, you want to do programming? And it's a 50-50 kind of thing. And sometimes we'll be, hey, sure, that's great. And sometimes, honestly, we'll get no response at all.
Do you take pictures?
Do we?
What's your process for taking out panels? How long to get
For convergence.
$5.
There's there's part of under the actually it's the get involved section. There's a panel suggestion form. There in the program guide and the Figure book, and also outside this room are URLs and QR codes to send us ideas.
But if I actually want to pick a panel that I would be doing being a moderator and I would actually put the cameras on, is that still
Yeah, there's a
We do
form
that,
that's-
but early. Remember,
Yeah.
Convergence, they close that sometime in January?
Well, let me get to that. It's the same form, just with different settings. And so you say it's a locked panel and stuff, and then there's a spot for you to sort of explain to us why you want to run it and what's different. Yeah, talk about our timeline. We do a public brainstorming in October, November. And then the panel suggestions realistically need to be in by January 31st. The absolute deadline is March 31st, but anything that's in the last part of that probably isn't going to make it as far as a general suggestion. Lock one meeting up. We don't give preference. That said, there's no advantage of submitting early. It's not first come, first serve. We look at the mix and pull the best mix we can, both for panels and for panelists. There's an advantage to that.
Actually, I don't disagree a little bit. There's an advantage to submitting it early if it gets up on their website as a.
That's what I'm saying. Because up on January 31st, and it's a general open to other people to sign up, then more people can sign up.
Right.
And that way
The earlier it gets up on the website, the more some random person who you don't know who might otherwise be interested.
That's why we say January 31st realistically, because we open up sign-ups early February. But officially it's the end of March, and in particular, garden court events, which are always performances, presentations, arranged things as opposed to general discussions. Their deadline is March 31st.
Right, but that's not a panel.
That's not a panel.
That's just programming in general.
So that's why I say January 31st, you get the ideas anyways. But that gives you what, 6 months, 7 months? You gotta
A while.
And we take new ideas starting today for next year.
She's not great.
Yeah, submit it. So
For council room, I kind of take them when I get them. The thing about council, has anyone here been here to council room before? Okay, but fantastic. But the thing that's hard for us is that our convention's on different dates. We don't have like a first weekend like Convergence does. So basically, it's me looking at the calendar of the year saying, okay, this will be the panel cutoff time, and basically I have a separate email set up for council room panels that people send to me, and they send me their ideas, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. And the ones that don't work, I actually save them in a file for future conventions. Because maybe it was just there's not enough interest in the amount of time, but it's not necessarily a bad idea.
So how many people here look at this? How many people here are going to be on a panel at this convention?
Hey, great.
So what do you want to know?
We're already said let's transition to the actual panelist stuff. But
Yeah. Okay, let's see, we're in sync.
And this lady has her hand up, so
Yes.
you get the first question in this area.
How do you start deciding what to say on the panel? Do you ever hammer out like an order of subjects you're going to hit, or do you just start talking and it goes somewhere? How do you keep it from?
Ideally, that's what programming ops is for. If you don't know, especially if you have no clue the description is too general or whatever, contact the people, you have their names. Say you're going to meet in programming ops, or informally anywhere you want, and discuss it. Slice the subject and say how you're going to do it, pick a moderator, and say, okay, well, war in science fiction. That's pretty good. What do you even say about it? So, pick your topic, pick the direction. That's basically how you're going to do it. In the Minicon moderator tip sheet, we have starter questions and whatnot, and emergency questions. If you run out of steam on a particular thread, what happens? Dead air is not good. And the short answer to the question is decide as far in advance as possible, which is usually not very far. If you have to decide when everybody sits down while there's a room full of people in front of you, do that, but very quickly. And if not, then it's up to the moderator. Of course, you have to pick the moderator.
This is sort of why on time for a panel is often 10 to 15 minutes before, so you get that chance to meet your fellow panelists often for the first time and can quickly organize things.
So Ben doesn't realize we were also going to talk about Russian literature in the 1900s.
Damn, I'm so not prepared too.
Yeah, we should have.
But one of the things, again, with Convergence, when you sign up to be in a panel, there's a checkbox for whether or not you can share your email address with the other panelists on the panel. And we did one more step of automation this year. We're going to do even more for next year. The idea we want you to start encouraging panelists to communicate with each other before the panel. But we aren't going to share your email address without your express permission. So it's always opt-in, but we want to encourage people to do that so you're part of the discussion.
One of the hardest things to decide, because it's largely audience driven and you can know the panelists but you can't know the audience, is at what level are you going to speak at? There are beginning panels where you want to introduce people to the topic, and that can be pretty general and you don't have to know an awful lot. You have to know enough to fill up an hour with 400 people or 200 people, but that's 101. That's the base part. On the other hand, sometimes if you have a bunch of experts who delve really into it and want to focus on a specific work. I'm on a panel at 10 o'clock about Dahlgren, one book. In fact, the city of Dahlgren is a part of that book. We're anticipating that people who come to the panel know this book, which was published in the 60s, it's been around a long time. And we can hopefully get farther into it than your average 101 panel. I don't know if that's going to be the case. That's
On the audience, but yeah, that's a good example of an in-depth panel.
Right.
And partly it's up to the programming people who put together these things to make sure the descriptions are clear in scope of them. So it doesn't mean we do it succeed all the time, but it shouldn't be a yes or no question. Can the Enterprise destroy a planet? Well, yes, that's a given fact. You don't need to panel on that. The answer is yes, move on. So you don't want to say a panel on the Star Trek universe. That's too broad. There's no way to get focused. So getting the right scope on a panel is an art.
And you want to look for specifics too. Like we had one that was the science of Doctor Who. We could talk about the whole science of Doctor Who, but we took when my friend Jeff wrote the panel description were specific things like, Keegan saying zap. I'm going to say it, Charlie, is it Bionovich limitation effect? Limitation effect. So we took those specific things. So that's something.
Question back.
Sort of comment observance. Of course, I just automatically forgot the first thing that I was going to say. So I'll go on to the second thing. Crowd control. Because I've been on, that was the first thing. I've been on panels with people who hopelessly outrank me in terms of experience, time, and thing. And one of the things that I found actually worked was to almost retreat to a moderator standpoint, because I knew that the people in the audience were even more wanting to see. When you're next to Terry Pratchett, you play something. The second thing is crowd control in terms of answering questions. We're doing people who are loud enough slightly and will shout things out.
Well, in terms of ranking, you're on the panel, you deserve to say something. If you find that someone knows a great deal and the audience wants to know what they have to say, then you don't necessarily say a lot. You don't want anybody, even necessarily Terry Pratchett, to take over the entire panel because there is an entire interview for that. Nonetheless, if Terry Pratchett wants to speak and I was about to make the same point, I will let him. Or the equivalent thereof. Goes along with it. In terms of crowd control and questions, the panelists go first. Oftentimes, I did a panel many years ago at Convergence called Religion or Science. At 9:30 in the morning, it was packed, as you might imagine. It was, I believe, the first panel that Convergence ever specifically picked a moderator for me. Just because it needed a moderator. And people wanted to make points. They didn't really want to ask questions, they just wanted to make points. You can squelch that. There's a bunch of those in the moderator tip sheet. If they've gone on to, okay, we understand your point now. What, any panelists have anything to say about that? Or, thank you, I think we understand now. There's ways of cutting off people after they've made their point. If they haven't made their point, I just, if they just want to ramble, only panelists can do that. And when a panelist is rambling, it's up to the moderator, then not do that. So in terms of getting everybody to speak, that's the panelist's job. Yeah, some panels, the audience doesn't have an awful lot to say. Sometimes the panelists know a great deal more than, or have a great deal more to say than the panelists. And if they know more, I'm perfectly happy to have a discussion amongst a bunch of people and not just 5 people saying things. But that requires a mix of people. That requires the audience to be on the same page as well as the panelists to be on the same page. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and just as a person, I tend to, especially if you have a huge room and there's a bunch of people, I'll do like 1, 2, 3, just so that they know that you've seen them.
Right.
Yeah.
And usually what I do too is if I know somebody in the panel, like, hey, I have a question, something like that. But I always make sure that I'm including everyone. What I like to do in panels is, I think in my opinion, the first 45 minutes of the discussion amongst the panelists. And maybe there's like 10 or 15 minutes where the audience asks questions and they participate in the panel, just so that they're being acknowledged as well too.
A panel is a group discussion among equals, but some people are more equal than others. I mean, the panelists are the ones with the names in the souvenir guide and public. And so, essentially, they get their say. But a panel, speaking broadly in general, not that there aren't, we all can find exceptions, but speaking in general, a panel that is just among the panelists doesn't quite feel like the audience. Similarly, a panel where the panelists don't say a whole lot and it's mainly the audience talking also loses focus. And getting that right blend is an art. You'll learn it by doing it. We're all going to flub it. We're all going to flub it in the future. But as you get better at it, you flub it less. So don't as a new panelist or don't let that part overwhelm you.
And it's a discussion, not a presentation of papers. It's okay to disagree sometimes wildly, as long as it doesn't come to blows. And you can encourage, are you going to let them get away with that? And encourage of the discussion amongst the panelists, not necessarily the audience. As member of the producers, the original one. You are the audience, I am the author, I outrock you. And that's kind of how it goes. If there is a free discussion, as long as it doesn't get out of hand until the moderator comes in, it's okay to have a certain amount of give and take. It's okay to disagree and speak sharply as long as it doesn't get too bad. And everybody's friends at the end when you take questions.
Sort of before we started, Dave was starting to read off of the notes we have for panelists on that. Actually, this is the first year we put these on the table tents. In the past years, we had these on a sheet that people could pick up in programming apps, but usually people said, I don't want this one. Had the schedule on it and everything, all nice and beautiful, but they didn't want it. So we decided to put it on the tents instead. Let me just sort of go through it quickly, and we can keep myself just quick run through it and some comments on it, because they are pretty relevant for all panels, for all places. Well, I guess the first one's specific to verbiage. We're an all ages event. That doesn't mean there's all ages in the room at any given time. And please watch your language if children are present. So regardless of anything else, if there's a 6-year-old in the room, watch the language. If the youngest person is an adult, then don't worry about it. This has nothing to do with time of day. This is just being aware of who's in the audience. And yes, panelists, you're expected to be aware of who's in the audience. You're not focusing on yourself, you're focusing on the audience. Not stated here is that anything that's obviously adult-oriented, we won't schedule before 10 p.m. And that said, it'll be clear from the description that it's adult, but we don't have an adult tag. This is not an oversight. This is sort of taken out the art policy. Next thing, get ready. This is beginning. Pour water, silence your cell phone. Review panel description, which is conveniently written on here. There used to be this whole ceremony. What's this panel about? Blah, blah, blah. Let's find it. No, just put it here. Ensure that all panelists involved have a chance to speak. We've been doing this a long time. I'm not going to be able to intimidate this guy or this guy. We really work well together. So, this one I think is working well. But there are other ones where reminding people this is the case. Do not invite other people to join you as panelists, but do involve the audience. We often have, this is speaking like Curtis, we got 5 slots. 12 people might sign up. We have to cut them. We don't want a case for someone that can run and invite their friends up because those other people might be in the audience and that's rude to them. They fly and they didn't get on it. Then end on time. Thank the audience, remind them to pick up their trash and they put them back. And then if you look at rearrangements, they're in the charge, I'll put them back. And then finally, if you need assistance to AD setup or anything else, please find a programming host or contact programming operations. And we'll head up.
One of the things I really like about Convergence is that they're hour programming in 1.5 slots. So when they say end on time, that's actually kind of variable. You have to be out by the time the next slot comes in, but you can end on the hour. You can do a full hour, it's not 50 minutes, and have 10 minutes in between. And if necessary, and there's a lot of interest, you can sit around and talk for a little bit after that, as long as you're gone and the next time for the next group to come in. But that half-hour float gives you a great deal of leeway if you need it.
You can have 15 minutes of wind down. Yep, not full of audience. But, the panel itself is over, but you can have follow-on discussions and that's great. And still, the next people aren't beating you up to get on.
And if they are, then leave. If they do show up early, well, they're early, maybe they want to discuss what their panel is about.
As somebody who is a panelist, is there something about
Well, like Craig said, if you have access to other panelists' email, that helps. One of the panels I'm on this weekend, we all got together on Facebook and started talking about it.
Do you know about programming ops? It's the room at the far end of the hall, of this hall.
Okay.
They will have the little tags that say what program items you're on, and the panelist things.
It is here, panelist ribbon.
And that's where you can agree to meet there. And that's a space that you can go and talk about it if everybody knows to do that. So, do you know the other people on your panel?
I vaguely know some on one of the panels, but I don't know the people on the other.
You know, ideally, you all are here to continue related. Again, for future years, we're trying hard to, you know, we're going to send emails around in March and May saying, this looks like the current mix. These are the shared email addresses. Talk to each other, and give you more heads up and be proactive about it.
Well, I just thought of this, so I'm not sure it's a good idea yet, but would it be possible to have essentially a panel chat room underneath every programming item where only the people who are signed up, if you can pull out a menu and send a message to only them, and have some degree of interaction?
It's impossible in theory. You'd have to set up an entire user registration system.
As long as someone else does it that way.
Yeah, I don't want to do it. So, it's one of these things that maybe in a couple of years, we'll see how the tools and social things go. There's a lot we can do with Salesforce, but only a handful of people have access to it. But, you know, you all see Scabbers, the public side, but Salesforce is what we do a lot of interaction on.
So sometimes when I'm on panels, when I don't know the people, I will try and remember their names. I'm not actually very good at names, but I'll try and remember their names. And if I see them on the hall, or if they're bragging about the panel that they're going to be on, oh, you're that person, I'm on that panel, let's talk, or, you know, meet at the program on 15 minutes. That doesn't happen all that often, but it does happen. And so you can be aware of that and try and make that happen. And if it doesn't, then, you know, decide when you get there, but as much as possible you should. Any other question? You were in a programming? You got a panel? No.
No, he is, but.
How do you tread the line of self-promotion on a panel with some?
Well, I like to say that self-promotion is all well known. It depends on what you're doing. Authors can talk about their books. Well, in my book I said this, as long as it's on topic. Again, it depends on the topic. If the topic is about something that you have something to promote, I think that's reasonable. You can put your book in front of you. You don't necessarily have to talk about it every time it comes around to you. You can mention at the end that this is your website and that for $29.95 cheap, you can buy this, or, you know, whatever. So there is a place for that. Basically, if you're going to self-promote, you have to be worth it. You have to sound intelligent. If you want to promote your book and you sound like an idiot, no one's going to buy your book. So there's ups and downs for that.
And, you know, in the introductions at the beginning, when you talked about who you are and why you're on the panel, you know, even if it's a panel about Star Trek and you have written a book on Star Wars, you can just, it's reasonable to say I just have a brand new book out on Star Wars and move on. And it's okay to mention it as part of who you are, right? Even if it's a little off topic, but then you wouldn't bring it up again during the panel because it is on topic. You know, introductions have a lot more flexibility there. Similarly with closing comments if appropriate. But you expect it to not be obvious about it and obnoxious about it. If you ever want to get invited back to the panel. Convergence does do, you probably didn't even notice, but one of our general hosts came into the room for 10 minutes or so during the panel, observed the interaction, saw who was here and who wasn't here, made a bunch of other notes and went on. These all get entered into a database, yes, and we run through the data, get statistics about it, like how many people we actually are serving. And then also we look at all the unusual cases, we go through them and say, oh, what happened here? Why do we have to do something? You know, oh, this panelist didn't show up. You know, once it's okay, but if they were signed up for 5 panels and only get 2 of them, we're going to think twice next year about putting them on 5 panels.
And every time you don't get on a panel and gets noticed, your T-shirt is 2 sizes too small. So be careful about that.
But it's not a case of this one panel and you're banned for life. No. It's just, we look for trends and issues. You know, if we get a lot of negative comments from our viewers or audience members, because just like there's a URL for submitting ideas, there's a URL for submitting comments and evaluations. You're invited as an audience to, and even as co-panelists, send them in, we'll look at it. We love the feedback. We're trying to run a huge operation, and speaking for converting staff, and the more feedback we get, the better job we can do. If we don't hear anything, it's like, well, I guess we're doing okay, but how do we know? And it's okay to give us negative feedback. This didn't work, because that's where we say, okay, how do we change it so that can't fail, and we invent a new mistake for next year? You know, we don't want to repeat them. Inventing new ones is fine. Repeating them will be there.
I think for self-promotion, for me, like when I'm on a panel, I make it very casual. Like, you know, maybe I'll say, if I want Twitter followers, like Twitter followers say, hey, I'm at Ben P. Ellis, Twitter. But I usually, it depends on what the panel is. Like, if it's a Dr. Who panel, I'm going to mention the podcast. I'm on the podcast. But if it's not, I'm going to be like, I'll just play it cool. So.
I didn't take credit. I was in Cuba in May, and I've been posting Cuba pictures. That's the last time I mentioned. So, any other questions? Any other answers?
Do you provide feedback then to the panelists?
We're appropriate. I mean, we don't, if it's something, you know, if someone gives us a mail comment about something, no, probably not. If we see a pattern, then yeah, we'll actually either contact them by email, or if that's what we have, or other mechanisms, and sort of say, this is what was observed about you, and so on. You know, and we will, if, you know, in bad cases, which are fortunately very few and far between, you know, we'll just ban people from being panelists for a while. You know, especially if it's, you know, unacceptable behavior. You know, harassing type things, or but you know, we go to back to the, you know, the weird party. But we also try to figure out, because there's always 3 sides to every story, and we only get limited information. But yeah, we do follow up on everything. And in general, unless there's something amazingly weird, we would give good feedback. But you know, for people that have shown repetitive things, like, you know, we noticed that last year you were all signed up for 5 panels and you only need 2, you might want to make sure you only sign up for the ones you really want to make, you know, and we watch their behavior. I'm not saying we wouldn't put them on anything, but we might put them on things. You know, we had a panelist where he tended to arrive drunk, and that is not acceptable, except for a very small number of victim panels. No, I mean, I'm serious. It is not acceptable. So we cut back on a lot of stuff, and when we put him back on things, we paid attention to time of day and topics and stuff, so that we wouldn't put him in a position where he'd necessarily be drinking all day and then be on the panel. And you know, we'll see how that seems to light us this year. You know, the point isn't to harm people. The point is to turn them into good panelists. You know, so it's not a let's ban him for life. It's let's see what we can do to change circumstances and support him to make him successful. Because that's what we all want to do.
Socialization.
Yeah.
That's the previous, the Convergence 101. Yeah.
But it's also not, it's the attitude of we're all trying to be a good family together and help each other. You know, it's not about hurting people or being mean to people, it's about how to be nice to people.
And it's about including people, but
Yeah.
also realizing too that maybe this person, like you said, needs to take a break.
Yeah.
For some reason or another.
Or it just doesn't work well with that particular panelist.
No.
The other
Yeah.
panelist.
And we've had some where, we don't want to put those particular combinations together again. You know, there's issues and things like that. But
Craig, I'm curious, do you ever get emails from programming participants saying, I don't want to be on a panel with so-and-so?
no, in fact. Nobody has ever put out in comments like, or otherwise said, That said, of course, next week we'll be. That's a good question, and no, we've never gotten anything from a panelist saying I don't want to be on.
There are panelists that I would not want to be on a panel with, but their interests and mine don't coincide. So
Yeah.
the chances are really high that I'm not.
Well, we've observed that interaction, and we tend to put them on different things later. And usually the mix is such that you can do that without being obvious about it.
Yeah.
You know, if someone did that, we'd probably try to understand why. Rather than just letting it go, because again, it's not fair if people start doing that, and that way like
Totally.
But we also wouldn't, if someone indicated to us that a particular made them uncomfortable, you know, their ex-husband or ex-wife, you know, then it's like, okay, we'll make sure, because we don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable either. But we can't know that unless they tell us. And if they told us they had a good reason, and that's an example of, you know, good reason, then we might, you know, or just we're in a relationship and broke up or something, you know, their dad borrowed $5 billion from my dad and never paid it back. You know, whatever. You know, if they give us a reasonable reason, you know, we'll work with them on that. So far, no, but
Yeah,
I don't know. At some point.
It's happened to me for counselor too, and I've just had to, okay, what I do is if the one person's on a panel, I schedule like the other person on another panel so they're not together. So that's something I should incorporate asking why, because a lot of people think, like, and there are really personal reasons, but sometimes there are really silly reasons too, like, you know, they want to be on a panel together.
And one of the things that, having been a panel moderator for a long time, where the moderator sits can be really important.
Yes.
So if there's a reticent person, if Mr. Finseth here was as shy and reticent as you know, you can see he is, I would sit next to him and make sure that he talks. If there's two people who I know are, if not exactly enemies, at least on opposite sides over there, just so that they're talking through us so that we can interrupt and put our points too. And that's variable. I mean, that's personal. It doesn't always work specifically. It doesn't always work as well as I'd want. But yes, where the moderator sits, where people sit in relation to each other is important. As the moderator, you pay attention to body language. Whoever has something to say.
That's it. If the moderator sitting in the middle, it's hard. A couple of moderators have taken sitting on the ends.
Yeah, I do that.
And that's
usually
fine.
the spot for them is the end, to be honest.
Yeah, that's great. I haven't necessarily encouraged it, but I think it's a great idea, because then they can see the panelists a whole lot better.
Right, you know, I did that with Ted Chiang. You know Ted Chiang, the author, and whatnot. He is a very good writer, but very shy, hard to get him to say things. So at opening ceremonies, I hadn't known him. We just sort of sat down. And at closing ceremonies, I moved over one, so I was next to him, so I could just turn to him and make sure, you know, at least got a word in, because I was kind of asking directly. And you don't often know that at a panel, especially if you don't know the panel. You can generally figure things out pretty quickly, even with a couple of sentences right at the beginning. And so how these get put down is arbitrary, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, we don't have any independent half and one that's alphabetical.
It's not
that's how they're printed, but
Seniority? No. Okay, not even. You know,
they come in a stack, and if they start at that end, you know, then they'll take the first one. So they're going to be alphabetical one way or the other. But
so I have no compunction whatsoever about moving people around, especially if they're not here yet and don't know that I've moved them around. I will just do that. Not often, because it doesn't come up all that often. It doesn't matter a lot, but it does matter sometimes. And sometimes, especially if I know I'm going to be the moderator, I will decide whether I want to be on the end or the middle or whatnot. And if it's a very different panel with 3 people than it is for 5 people or 6. And some of that is experience, you just have to pick that up, and some of that you can't possibly know in advance, so you have to wing it. That's if I was going to say, you know, what's expected of you? That's the last part of this. What's expected of you is to be articulate and not destroy things, and basically be part of a conversation And just like any conversation under any circumstance, that's hard to do consistently for an hour. Nonetheless, you're the panelists, and that's your job. So you should at least try to be entertaining, if not interesting, and informative, if not,
But you're picked as a panelist, and what we're saying there is we want your thoughts, your opinions, your knowledge. What you have to say is important. So say it. It doesn't mean dominate everybody else, but it does mean don't be dominated by them either. It's equally important as the next guy or woman.
I would also say just if you think one person, maybe Craig has more knowledge about something than I do, but I don't have as much knowledge as Craig, don't feel intimidated by that. Learn from that, listen to them, but be proud of what you know, what you're aware of as a panelist. Because that's why you're on here. You're not here because you're a uber expert or an expert, you're here because you love whatever you're talking about. And there was no reason much.
Well, then that's sort of where I was going. So I've not yet been on a panel. I would love to, but I think I only have a few spheres of real competence or expertise. And so whenever I look at panelists and I see some that are relevant, I'm like, I don't know that I have more to bring than other people who would sign up. And so I sort of give up.
Well, here's what, let me answer that. Because A, you might be right, but you might not. I mean, it's possible that they're blowing their pack through their wing. But and this is a more serious suggestion, what you can bring that other people might not is better questions. You might know enough to ask or say, well, that's interesting, I never considered that, and have a degree of knowledge base that allows them to answer questions better, that allows the panelists to say more intelligent things, and you were part of that. Just because your area of expertise is enough that you can prompt. What do you mean by that?
But think of something different. That's a wonderful thing. Bringing questions to the other panelists is valuable. And knowing enough to ask good questions can make you a very key panelist. Different thing is, even if you don't know everything about everything, you probably know a lot about something. Suggested as a panel idea. Then sign up for it. I mean, we do. Unlike other conventions, suggesting an idea doesn't mean you get signed up for it. It's a separate process.
Yeah.
Because we get the same idea from 15 different people oftentimes, or variations on the idea. There's got to be a big movie coming out in the next 12 months. We'll get a bunch of people saying, you got to do a panel on the next big movie. So because of that, we don't. Just because you suggest it doesn't mean you're on. This is very different from a lot of other conventions. Okay, but sign up for it. But especially, let's say there's got to be something you know something about that's different. I mean, I'm a Lovecraft fan guy, so I might have, if I thought about it in time, which I didn't. I mean, Lovecraft and dystopia, how do they differ? How are they the same? That could have been a really interesting panel that I could have spoken on. And so don't feel bad about coming up with something that reflects your interests.
And in my opinion, it never hurts to do a little bit of research.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to go, this isn't like studying for a college, college midterm, but for instance, if you're studying if you're doing a panel on a media type thing, if you have time, read the book again, if it's on a book. If it's something that's on DVD, what I find helpful is to listen to the commentary, that if there's commentary on the DVD, just so you can share that extra note or insight.
Remember, your audience is also helping listen to the commentary.
Yes.
So parroting it isn't necessarily about, but thinking about it does help.
Well, not much parroting, just taking notes and, well, hey, this was a really interesting point that I
Yeah.
Well, I did a weekly radio show for almost 30 years, and it had different topics, and there wouldn't necessarily always be a discussion, but I feel that at a convention, give me a week or two's notice, I can be a panel's worth of expert on anything. And that's because an hour really, and you have 12 minutes if it's 5 of you, an hour really isn't a long time to expound on something. But that's why I could be a moderator on basically any subject, especially if you let me know in advance so I can ask a couple of good questions. So that's it. Yes.
Along these lines, with respect to time and research, especially with visual examples, what's your guidelines in terms of presenting an answer?
Know that in advance and let the 80 people.
Pretty much.
We offer the screens for presentations and things like that. For panels, it's harder because you don't really control things. It's certainly not impossible, but this is something where you want to coordinate with your fellow panelists in advance. And if you think it's going to need that, then you need to check the requires projector box so that we know to put it in a room that has a projector. But that's a separate issue. I mean, you can come back and modify it later as long as you tell us and do them all the time.
And remember, at some point, the tech will fail, so prepare your presentation in shadow puppet language.
Yeah, although we've actually got it down to be good these days. That doesn't mean yours won't be the one with the availability. So the answer is not impossible, but it requires coordination with your fellow panelists, a lot more than a regular panel, because they got to know what you were thinking of doing so they can work with you. On the other hand, if you're doing your own thing, then you're welcome to do whatever you want. But now it's your presentation or your whatever performance, so you control it A to Z, really.
I agree with that. Like what Craig said, just talk to your fellow panelists about it too, and also like talk to your AV department about it ahead of time too. And make sure your con has the equipment, because yeah.
And make sure you know where your presentation is in the thing. Oh, it's in this folder. No, it's not.
I'd also say too, don't rely on YouTube to work at the hotel. Because you and 5,000 other people have the same idea. Not going to happen, so.
Yeah, the stuff about, there's a page up on the Converted site about panels and all that. It does tell you what the AV setups are and stuff, but it also tells you we do not provide internet access. You can arrange it on your own or whatever, but you're on your own because we just can't, we're not in a position to guarantee anything.
I recommend hiring a mime troupe.
Maybe in a couple of years,
relatively
it's cheap enough
inexpensive.
that the hotel can include it, and then we can, start looking at physical links and things, because again, what the problem is wireless, either Wi-Fi or data type wireless, is workable but not reliable. It's absolutely not a positive work.
Right. Only slightly more serious than previous suggestions is be prepared to give whatever presentation you have without the tech.
Yeah.
So, more questions?
More answers? Yes.
You had mentioned that there was kind of a trend of comments that you'll pass that on to the presenters. Is that only if there was like a consistent, like we couldn't hear you, but if everybody was like, oh, this part was awesome and they're hilarious? Does the positive feedback also get passed on, or just?
As a rule, no. I'm gonna be honest.
So everybody say good things about us and they'll get passed on.
No. I mean, we get the comment, we get the evaluations, we get comments, and panel went really well. Okay, there's not a lot to say about that. And we really spend most of our energy focusing on the things that don't go well. I'll be honest about that. The vast majority of panels run fine. On topic, good interaction, no comments. Or everything is great, which gets transcribed into no comments. Because then when that goes to the database and it comes out, we only want to know the exceptions where there weren't things that went well. I'm not saying guaranteed no matter what, but the vast majority, just the way we run things and the scale we run, we'd be sending out letters to everybody saying, yes, your panel went well.
Right. One of the hardest things that conventions do, especially after the convention, is talk to each other.
Yes.
That's incredibly hard. So if you want to give ego boom, a boost to the ego, that's the Finnish medium of exchange, do it directly. Either come up after the panel, or if you have a complaint that's not too bad, how dare you talk about 19th century Russia like that? Say, that was really interesting, you mentioned a book. Thank you for speaking, I hadn't looked at it that way. It doesn't have to be much more than that. It doesn't even have to be right after the panel, although that's where they are, so you might as well catch them. You can give feedback directly. If it's bad, make it polite. If it's good, gush, because we like that. And so, you can do it yourself. You don't have to rely on the convention to do the feedback, because conventions are really bad at feedback.
If it's bad and you don't want to do it yourself, come find us in programming ops and let us know. We'll make a note and enter it in and stuff. I mean, the thing about getting good feedback is we'd be sending out swabs of mail, which is basically, yes, everything went fine, your presentation, your panel went well. And, you know, that's basically true to this bank.
But
There's no information content there.
Let me just get on my little high horse about something here. You've now encountered one of the big differences between professional conventions and fan-run conventions is that you are not an attendee. We are not entertainment for you audience. You are a member. You are equal to anybody, including the guests of honor. They're the guests of honor and they deserve a certain amount of respect. But you are expected to do interaction. This is entirely variable and entirely up to you, but it is perfectly okay for you to talk to someone. Keep in mind that they might be busy or doing something else and catch up at the wrong time, but it is good for you to be part of the panel, even afterwards or whatnot. That's kind of expected of you as a member, not an attendee, but as a member of Convergence.
And I will also say, you know, the way we've been doing things is not guaranteed to be the way we'll do things in the future. If we start getting feedback like, I want to hear good feedback about panel, and I'm a panelist, I want to hear the good feedback too, okay, we'll change how we do things. So far, no one's come to us and said that. And we've been busy enough dealing with the other things that, you know, there's, you know, we try to expand and do a better job every year. You know, one thing I say to myself is if I don't sort of approach this job of, I'm eager to make changes and do things better this year than last year, if I ever lose that, then I need to step down to the head. Because I have to turn over to someone else who is willing to do it. The 4 years that I'm doing this, we've improved dramatically as the size of the crowd got better. This doesn't mean that the previous people were bad or anything. It just means that we've learned more. We've made a lot of mistakes that we're not going to make again, and so we've improved in those ways. The con has also doubled in size over those 4 years, so we really need right problems.
Reinventing the wheel is all well and good as long as it's around. So.
Mythbusters showed that.
Exactly. Yes, when in doubt, reference Mythbusters.
Especially when they actually did the myth. So, any last comments? It's almost 6 o'clock.
Have fun when you do a panel. That's the key.
Real quick, can you give us like a little taste of the worst panel you were on?
I don't know if I've ever been on any really bad panels. I've been on ones that were less comfortable to be on because they were speeches, and the people came and wanted to say something. They didn't really want to interact, and they gave their speech, which was greater and lesser, but it was not a panel. I didn't feel that I knew more about them, even though I was sitting 2 people down from them, and so. Again, they said intelligent things and was all well and good, but that to me is not a panel. That's a lecture.
I think for me, the worst panel I was around was actually last year at Convergence. Was the Doctor Who Missing Episode panel. And the reason I didn't enjoy it was there were 5 of us, but someone decided to join us in the panel. And this person is known for dominating conversations like you would not believe. So basically, at some point in the panel, a friend of mine had to kick me and say something. So, and that was just hard because when you read a description on the website or on the program book, you're going to be the person X, Y, Z. You're like, hey, that's fantastic. But when you have that extra person who talks too much, it's not fun. It's really annoying.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Thanks, Fred.
we knew that it happened, but not until after the fact. And that was one of those that we did some follow-up
Right.
on.
One of the few times I felt I made a mistake as a panelist was letting someone come up and be a panelist who wasn't on it. It was crowded and that person had spoken for by someone. Well, it turned out not to be all that bad, but I kind of regretted it partially because it was already a crowded panel and there was like 7 of us now instead of 6. And so again, not bad, but I wish I'd handled that better.
And actually, I'm the one who cut us down from 6 to 5 because I was on several panels, and in theory, they were all knowledgeable people and so on, but there was always someone who never said anything. And there's no point in being on the panel if And it's not that the others were being really dominating, it's just that in the natural ebb and flow, 6 is too many.
It is.
Um,
6 divided by an hour is 10 minutes, not counting introductions or whatnot. And you should have people who have more than 8 or 9 minutes worth of interesting things to say. That's why.
And to answer the question about my experiences, there was someone who, we were on a panel on a very specific topic, and he would take it and turn it into stories about his life. And they were great stories, and if it was a panel on his life, he could do it by himself for an hour and entertain the audience wonderfully. That wasn't the issue, is he was off topic. I was a very forceful, unofficial moderator, and kept shutting him up, which that's what we get to do as a programming anyways. But he is now noted in our files as make sure there's a strong moderator on any panel he wants to be on. It's not that we wouldn't put him on anything, just we'd make sure there was a strong moderator to keep him on.
Was not it.
He is not a good moderator. He's a great person, and his stories are really, really good. I don't want to put him down at all, but just out of context, inappropriate for the panel.
So, there it is, the back and forth.
Thank you.
Thank you. I expect all of your panels to have terrific feedback. So, go out there and panel.
Never panel.